You're listening to the When Life Hands You Lemons podcast.
But in an entry-level film production, it's one strike and you're out. You're fired. I'm not calling you back.
If your goal today is to make a basket, we're going to make that basket.
The minute you create something, as soon as it's made tangible, you have a copyright in it.
How do I get our guys to sound that big, that full when they do the harmonies?
And I'm your host, Lennon Seahawk. Let's get to the show. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of When Life Hands You Lemons. This week's episode features Ketan Rahangdale, and he is a music tech entrepreneur. And a couple of my favorite things mashed together, music and tech. So I'm really excited for this conversation because Ketan and I dive in to artist-fan relationships and rewards. Now, this is a very interesting topic because 10, 15 years ago, these types of things did not exist. So when you wanted to meet your favorite band or your favorite artist, you had to get a ticket, or you spend thousands upon thousands of dollars to get a VIP ticket, depending on how big or small the artist may be. But now these types of rewards are kind of evolving. And for example, you can, through Ketan's company, Unitea, you can basically listen to music and you get rewards, which you're then able to kind of redeem to listen to and work with one of your favorite artists. So maybe you wanted to play video games with one of your favorite artists, or he gave an example of going on a balloon ride with one of your favorite artists. And it's just these types of things is you're being rewarded for streaming and listening to the music. You're doing it anyways. Why not get rewarded for it? And he talks about all these types of things. He talks about the technology and how he got into music tech and his codec, and how the codec that he used or built was used in the Bluetooth technology in the BeatsByDre headphones that were eventually acquired by Apple. So I don't want to give too much away because Ketan gives a much greater story than I ever could. But before we dive into the conversation, I want to remind you to please sign up to my mailing list, as it helps me notify you when new episodes like this are live. I'd also appreciate it if you would follow me on Instagram. I will put that in the show notes below. Please leave me a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, because it greatly helps boost the show in Apple's algorithms and help it be discovered by new listeners. Lastly, if you or somebody you know would be a good guest for the show, there is a guest request form in the show notes below. Please fill that out and let me know that you are interested in being a guest. So without further ado, let's get into my conversation with Ketan Rahangdale. Cool. So where are you coming to me from?
I'm here in Miami right now.
Miami. I just recorded a podcast last week with somebody in Miami. So a lot of people coming from Miami. How are things doing down there? Are you guys safe and healthy, quarantined in?
Absolutely. I'm very, very blessed. My folks are in Northside, Florida, where it's actually not that bad. But here there's a lot of people, so it makes sense to be a little extra careful.
Yes, definitely. I actually moved from Florida out to California. I'm coming to you from Los Angeles. I moved from Orlando about 9 months ago.
Oh, well, I have a place there.
Oh, yeah, I went to school at Full Sail. So,
nice. I went to UCF.
Cool. Yeah, so we were just right up the street from each other. When did you graduate?
I never graduated. Funny story.
Oh.
I'm kind of one of those guys. I went to 4 colleges. I did end up graduating from online through University of Phoenix at the end of the day. But yeah, I definitely, I always followed my passions in entrepreneurship more, and that's probably why I'm doing what I'm doing now.
Absolutely. So when were you going to school at UCF?
I was there between 2012 and 2015.
Okay, so I started on Full Sail at 2015, so we just kind of crossed paths there. What did you get your degree in online at University of Phoenix?
Finance.
Finance, okay. And now, that's probably kind of been helpful throughout your entrepreneurial endeavors, I'm assuming, yeah?
Yeah, no, actually, it was probably the one thing that I'm glad to have kept with me from college. That's for sure.
And have your parents kind of supported you, because a lot of parents like go to school, get an education, start a family, and, work until you die?
I'm definitely the black sheep. I mean, my family, listen, I come from a traditional Indian family where most folks are doctors, lawyers, or engineers, and so is my little brother. So I'm the guy who said, nah, I'm a bad nerd and an even worse musician. So I should probably just go down that route, and that's what I did.
Yeah. I mean, it's so important to follow whatever you're passionate about. And if you weren't passionate about being a doctor or a lawyer, then what good does that do to just go to school and waste all that money and time on it?
Absolutely.
So why don't you tell us what you're kind of doing now, what you're up to, and some of the projects you've worked on, how you got to where you're at?
Sure, yeah. Well, it seems like an eternity ago talking about college, but I do love all my alma maters. I think each place I went to holds a special place in my heart. But, I started pretty early. From a very young age, I was playing guitar, playing drums, learned how to DJ, did the whole thing that most kids do these days, or a lot of young guys. But, it was about around 16, 17, I decided to actually get hands-on and learn mechanical engineering, computer engineering, really just by passion. And I ended up creating the standard for Bluetooth technology across all iPhones, from the 5th generation onwards to the 9th generation, between basically my high school years and my sophomore year of college. And actually that venture was called EarTop. I was lucky enough that we built the codec called the CSR Aptix 8670 codec, where we supported the engineering of it. And through that venture, I was awarded 2 times in a row, Impact 100 from the White House, being one of the youngest CEOs under the age of 30. I was actually the only person to win it under the age of 20, but I don't know why. But it was kind of through that recognition where I ended up actually going to Blackstone and heading up early stage venture capital there, and really starting that with college students through their Launchpad program, and helping kickstart that in the state of Florida, both during my time at University of Miami, which I was there for a brief stint in 2012, and then actually carried my work when I went to UCF following. So, after having been on both sides of the table as a VC and an entrepreneur, basically by the time of 2021, I just noticed some things, and I had seen a lot of deal flow. And, I won an award from Steven Schwarzman for being, Steven is the chairman of Blackstone Group, for being, one of the top entrepreneurs out of the UCF ecosystem. But what I thought was really cool was particularly how artists and fans just had all these technologies at their disposal. And I met a lot of artists through basically the recognition that I was blessed to receive. And, whether I was in the room with Pitbull or some underground producer, I was noticing the value of music has really gone to these massive big data and social media platforms and companies, while there's diminishing returns on streaming royalties that are being paid out to artists. You look at what an artist was getting paid even in 2007 from Spotify, or 2013, right? They went from getting about a cent a stream down to about 2/3 of a cent a stream to right now it's at about, a fourth of a cent a stream, all within 10 years. So when the product is being commoditized at a rate where there's diminishing returns, and you're relying on live for the bulk of your income, what happens when a pandemic hits and live is gone, right? And I think that's we're starting to see that. And that was, obviously when I started this, I didn't know coronavirus was going to happen, but that was the catalyst for what sent us on this journey, right? It was, hey, can we create a model where we're bringing the value of big data, which is estimated by IBM Watson to be about $400 billion in music alone, right? Can we create a mechanism that gets artists paid the true value of their art? And can we have brands feed that pinwheel? So that's essentially, what led us to today and how we got here, which was, the past few years I've been spending building this thing, and here we are.
I want to go back a little bit and talk about EarTop Technologies a little bit, because that was kind of a catalyst and one of your pinpoints in your career. And have you always kind of had that inventive mind? Because can you explain when you're talking about the codecs and stuff that you created, can you water that down for somebody who's techie but not that techie? What does that mean for the devices that I am using? Is that the technology that you created? Was that the technology that I was using in my iPhone 5, 6, 7 years ago?
Yes, it was. A codec is really just a fancy word for a translator of a kind in technology, right? So it's essentially what's translating the information from your phone to another Bluetooth device and back, right? So the better the translator, the more probably the other receiving end is going to understand, right? So we essentially created a codec that translated about 99.7% efficiently, so that the other receiving party, which in this case we had our own product that was it was like a Bluetooth dongle that when plugged into any auxiliary input or 3.5 millimeter input, made it a high fidelity wireless audio tech product. So it could turn a pair of really bad speakers into a pair of high quality speakers quite easily. And actually what we did was, during that time in 2011, you may remember BeatsByDre was coming out. So
yes,
we actually ended up building this product to fit the form factor of BeatsByDre. And what ultimately ended up happening was the codec that we were supporting engineering on was acquired by CSR, Cambridge Silicon Radio, which ultimately ended up licensing that technology into every iPhone and what ultimately became BeatsByDre. And we all know what happened with Beats and Apple. So it's kind of interesting how, to some degree, form or fashion, there was a little engineering team based in Tallahassee, Florida, that actually built that codec.
So were you a little bummed when you missed out on that deal, when you could have licensed that? I bet that was kind of a sad day.
No, honestly, it wasn't that bad. You live and you learn. At the age of 18, I was a Kairos Society member where, I was part of this awesome entrepreneurial collegiate organization that really allowed me to expand my network from being a kid in Tallahassee to, I was the president of the Southeast region and was sitting across the table from Encore and Naveen Jain and Bill Gates and Bill and Melinda Gates were on the foundation was on the board, and just these incredible people, which you could only imagine having that launching pad so early in my journey has allowed me to just, really be able to find the best teammates ever. And I think that's a large part of why I'm here today.
Yeah, and what was kind of the state at that time of wireless headphones? I've had wireless headphones over the years, but I guess I haven't tracked them as heavily as probably you have. So during that time when you were working on that codec, were wireless headphones kind of a big thing? Was it kind of emerging?
Not at all. Actually, that year, January 2012 was the year at CES Las Vegas where Bluetooth headphones took the cake. It was a number one product category. Everybody was coming out with them. We built the codec and engineered it in 2011. So the standard for the boom, there were no wireless BeatsByDre at that point. So what ended up happening was they ultimately acquired the IP that they integrated into the future rendition of the wireless Beats. But yeah, at that time we were ahead of the curve, and that it was a cool experience. I mean, I got one of the earliest artists I ever met, and he's turned into a good friend, is Akon. I mean, I'll never forget, during that stint, him flying me out to Morocco. We were in Marrakesh, and it was just like, I have no idea what I was doing there. I was 19 years old. And I was like, this is crazy, Yeah. But it definitely, at that point, what it allowed me to do was get this behind the scenes angle behind like the real life of these artists, right? Mm-hmm. And when I caught a glimpse of that, and I realized, I mean, it's just go. I mean, I don't even think these guys know for the most part. And trust me, now I fly more than most artists that I know, believe it or not. But I back then I was like, Jesus, I mean, I can't even remember half the time where I'm waking up. So it's that grind. I said, there's got to be a better way to do this, and it was a long journey. I mean, we've been on this journey for about five years now since we set out on Juke's Unity.
Now that you've met Akon, and I grew up on Akon. I love a lot of his music, and I've heard of what he's doing today and building that city, and it's just the work that he's doing is incredible, and we definitely need more people like him. So when you're working with these high-level artists like Akon, and now you've got your own company, Unitea, and you're working with a lot of these artists, like, what are some of the things that you're seeing? Like, what are the issues that you're seeing? You're bridging kind of a gap of, you're bridging a gap between artist relation and, technology, because like you said, a lot of these artists they don't have any time. So what are the common factors that you're seeing among these bigger artists, and then some things that you could maybe jump in and assist with?
Yeah, I mean, the things that we've really seen is at the end of the day, these people, all of these artists, they're working really, really hard. And data is something that's thrown around at them like, I mean, everybody's saying, I got this data play, I can do this, I can do that. And there's a lot of skeletons in the graveyard in the artist fan data game, right? So we totally recognize that. I think from our perspective, we're really just trying to say, hey, look, let's make it easy. You guys don't need to become data scientists to enjoy the benefits of knowing who your real fans are and actually making money when they just love you, when they listen to your music. And the people that can fund that, the people that are already funding that are major brands. And we've worked with notable brands in Fortune 100s like Urban Decay, Procter & Gamble. We have a data partnership with them, BMG, UTA, Univision. So, I mean, we're working with these brands all the time, and what they're already doing is spending dollars on massive media platforms, and we can name all of them. And none of those dollars ever go to the creator who's putting the time, money, and effort into engaging the audiences that they're targeting. Mm-hmm. So we said, why? This is crazy. We don't need to reinvent the wheel here. All we really need to do is just a portion and essentially give a portion of those dollars back. So, we've always been trying to figure out what's the right mousetrap. And over the past few years, we've now activated thousands of artists. Akon was one of the earliest guys I sat with, and he's a good friend. But I mean, I give big shout outs to my partners in Dirty Bird, Claude Von Stroke, Pitbull, Michael Bearden. I mean, these are all guys that have been at my beck and call for years now. And, it took us a while to figure out what's that nut. And what we figured out now is, hey, fan loyalty comes from people listening to music. Gosh darn, the number one thing we can track to gauge whether you love an artist is whether or not you listen to their music, right? And sure, social engagement trends are important because that's what gives you an indication of reach and real-time engagement for a brand. But the most important thing is you can't fake listening to music, right? And you may think that's the craziest thing, and here we are. I mean, we just displayed a case study this weekend where we had peak usage times of 20 hours and median usage time of like a little over 30 minutes. I mean, 20 hours. I had my artist relations staff consoling children that stayed up 20 hours straight, didn't sleep for 2 nights, listening to hours on end, hundreds of songs of Rez's music for a bomber jacket. Right? So it's like, that's in form of data. What is that worth? Right? Is that the same as a like? I don't know. Right? So what we found is it's not really about followers or likes. It's about the true fans that are going to buy your tickets, that are going to convert, and they show that off in a very simple form. How much they listen to your music.
That's really interesting, and I like it's scary to see the disparity of how big data is versus how much, like, I was reading an article about you where it said like the recording music industry only made like 16 billion, but the data that to get that 16 billion was like $400 billion. Why is there such a gap, and who's getting all that money?
Well, I mean, look, we all know who's getting the money. It's the Facebooks, the Googles, big tech is getting the money. And we're not going to lie, we are a technology platform, but we're saying as the stewards of that money, I'll tell you what they've done. We all have heard of YouTube. All right, well, YouTube pays one of the lowest streaming royalty rates in the world. The line item of YouTube is so insignificant on the balance sheet of Google that, it barely makes it up to the board level discussions, right? They're just now trying to invest in that. Same thing at Apple. It's like, wow, oh my God, Apple paid out a few billion in royalties. It's like, Apple's market cap's $1 trillion. What are we, it's kind of like, it would be the equivalent of us tipping an artist a penny when we saw him at a bar. It might be a nice gesture, but for most artists, that's just not going to get the job done. So we said, why do we have to... the only way to create a new model isn't by trying to cut up a pie of royalties that has been cut up so many times by so many people in the value chain at this point. It's really about getting the dollars that exist on the other side of the data table to flow back to, I think, the hands that they deserve to be in.
So you talked about the streaming and how we were consulting with kids that were staying up for 20 hours, 30 hours at a time and listening to this music for a bomber jacket. Like, that's commitment if I ever heard it. Like, that's a lot of time. So, and your company kind of focuses on these kind of engagements, is that correct?
Yeah, so I mean, at its core, all we're doing is giving fans a platform where they can sync their Spotify or Apple Music right now, listen to music, they get these karma points that they can redeem for rewards. Those rewards could be a bomber jacket, it could be a FaceTime call, it could be meeting that artist backstage. And up until now, we've always tried to focus on doing those physical rewards for our top fans, right? But in today's environment, that's not possible. But yeah, but through that data, what are we really identifying? We don't just know who the super fans are. We don't just have their email. We have them on our app. And our peak engagement metrics during festivals, we're doing 7 posts a minute. So it's like these guys are not just making posts, they're proving how much they love their artist by actually spending the time listening to the music. And that's, you can only imagine that's how special these people are. We say, okay, let's empower artists with data by paying them up front for helping us understand what makes their culture so special in these people, right? And we can sustain that because, listen, what are we giving these people? We're giving them things they love, and let brands fuel that, because brands want to know who these people are, and data doesn't have to be scary. It can be as simple as, you're giving us data so we can give you free stuff, and here's the people who are going to give it to you. It's all your favorite artists. That's as simple as it has to be.
Do you think that these types of rewards are kind of like the next step, whether it be, during coronavirus and the pandemic and then after? Like, do you think these, I think you call them experiential rewards, are these kind of like the next venture, whether it be a FaceTime or a bomber jacket? And like, why would somebody spend 20 hours listening to music versus just paying the $70 for it? Like, I understand, some people don't have $70, but at the same time is money.
Right. No, I mean, it's a great point. And actually our data supports that they do exactly what you said. When we put a reward up on our app, we'll ping the artist management for inventory counts. And sometimes by the time we've put it up on the app as a reward, they've sold out. Because people have, obviously management will always send us a shirt. But the point is, by going up on the app, the people that don't want to put in the time, that's exactly what they do. They go buy it. But there's enough people out there that don't have $70 to spend on a t-shirt, right? And outside of that, I go back to your first question, which was, where do I see it going? Yes, I mean, look at platforms like Cameo. That's a great example. Platforms like Omaze, platforms, there's dozens of them that have come out, where it's all about creating that experience that we as millennials, Gen Z youth crave, right? That video is not going to get us to convert on something unless it's a impulse reaction or an impulse buy. And that's what these brands are figuring out, right? They're figuring out that just putting videos up on Instagram and Facebook doesn't get me emotionally vested into something. But an artist that I love maybe does, right? And if we can use artists as paragons and essentially brand ambassadors to advocate for things that are pari passu their own brands and their own ethos for what they stand in, I think that's the way you create a model of ambassadorship and advocacy rather than a model of influence or influencers.
Some people have, like, they will pay $70 for a bomber jacket, but then that also leads me to the fact, like, oh, well, if you're not actually paying for it and you can just get people to listen to 20, 30, 40 hours of my music, that means I can ramp up the price of a t-shirt. Instead of it being $20, I can charge $40 for it because, you're spending more time, and it's kind of devaluing the merchant. It's like, how do you keep it a level playing field and fair for everybody else that maybe is just wanting to I love the artist, I have $20, I'll throw $20 rather than spending 30 hours listening to the music.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we don't give away bulk quantities, right? If we're giving away, we're not giving away enough quantity to where we're affecting the market value of the merchandise. What we're really doing is saying, look, for you crazy fans that, trust me, fans are crazy, right? For you guys that are crazy that don't have that opportunity right now to fork up the $70, you can earn it, and you're going to work for me. You're working for me because you're listening to my music. And oh, by the way, when you listen to my music through Spotify, I get paid, right? And not only am I getting paid my royalty from Spotify, but Unity's helping me out and paying for the cost of the merch at retail value. So I'm generating revenue on both ends. And on top of that, we actually pay out cash stipends to artists as they get more members in their fan crews, right? So as they hit certain goals and their fans are more engaged and they're posting more and doing more things, we literally take the revenue that we're making right off the top and give it back to the artists. So it's the first form of an actual data royalty, meaning we're paying for engagement, right? And that's something that no other platform in the world is doing.
So when artists and these fans are listening to the music on Spotify, are they just putting on, say, an artist's album and then just playing it on shuffle and repeat where it just gets 30 hours, or are they actually legitimately listening to the music, to actually enjoying it, where rather it's more passive? And what are kind of the rules behind Spotify? Like doesn't Spotify frown upon that, and can't that affect like the artist metrics in the back end?
Yeah, well, no, our algorithm accounts for all of that. We abide by all the Spotify's SDK's policies, and for in order to compensate for that, we have built-in stagnation into the algorithm. So actually, if you're passively listening to an artist, and trust me, if you just look at our Twitter, you can figure this out. If you just passively listen to the same artist on Unity, you actually, there's a half-life on the karma. You get less karma. Right, so it's a logarithmic algorithm, meaning up to a certain point, yes, you'll get more karma the more you listen, but after about a certain period of time, it's less than a few hours, you get a half-life. So people that have been streaming for 20 hours straight immediately start complaining because they're like, I've been listening to music for 20 hours straight and I'm barely getting any karma, why, right? And we tell them, we're like, listen, it's because we have to keep it fair, right? Mm-hmm. It can't just be that because you've been on here for 2 weeks and you've been listening to music for 2 weeks, you get more karma than some guy that we want to listen to the music more, or otherwise it would just be a first come, first serve model, right? And, also to account for Spotify's algorithm, we actually, you earn about 10 to 20 karma on an average of a 3 to 5 minute song. So, on a 3-minute song, you're getting about 10 karma a stream. You actually only get that as you listen to the whole song. So it is a time-coded algorithm by millisecond. So it's when you see karma velocity on our app for artists, it's literally based off the number of people that listen to that artist's music and exactly how long they've listened. It's a very precise metric.
That's interesting, and I'm sure there's all kinds of different rules and things that you have to follow with Spotify, because there's just so many companies and agencies and public relations firms that have popped up within the Spotify kind of ecosystem, and it's kind of hard to vet the ones that are real, the ones that are actually following Spotify's rules, because there's so many people that are kind of like the new payola, where it's pay to play. I'll give you $1,000 if you put my artist in this playlist for X amount of weeks or months. And it's kind of a skeptical system, which is why I was kind of interested into seeing how that works. But going off of a little bit, aside from just within Unity, the experiential rewards is very interesting to me. It's kind of an interesting concept, and it's not anything crazy new. Artists have always been providing fans with experiences throughout the history of music. So how I'm interested to see how things can continue to evolve. What are some of the drawbacks in these type of experiential rewards these days? I know a lot of artists kind of stay away from them because they take too much time. I've heard of artists signing so many letters or copies of their CD. Well, then they have to sign 500 copies and then they have to mail them out, and it takes them weeks to do so. What are some other experiential rewards that artists are kind of using or leveraging, and that maybe don't take as much time?
Yeah, I think you're right on the money, right? I don't know if experiential rewards are for everyone. And what we've seen is, at this stage in our platform's life cycle, we wanted to give something precious. And I want to be completely candid, right? I don't think that experiential rewards are a way that you're going to be able to scale any platform or be able to reward every fan that deserves a reward, right? So we definitely have plans to where we, and especially in this environment, are trying to do more digital rewards. But you're right, they're not for everyone. Every artist is so special. That's what makes Bass Heads for Bass Nectar Bass Heads. It's what makes Deadheads Deadheads. It's what makes us the fans of the artists we are, right? Is, maybe Gustaf Falstein doesn't want to do a fan reward, and that's totally cool, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe for him, dropping a secret link to his to an up and coming single that's unreleased or a snippet of it on SoundCloud is enough. Or maybe different artists all have different ways they engage their specific fan cultures. And I think the artists that have maintained the best cultural integrity with their fans are those that know what's the best fit for them.
When the Google form was filled out to be on the show, you put in like taking a balloon ride with an artist, and I'm thinking, well, an artist like Akon or Deadmau5 or Bass Nectar probably does not have the time of day to do a balloon ride with, you know, X amount of fans. That's taking so much time away from other more important things. I'm not saying that fan engagement is not important, but at the same time, continually providing content is what these fans want, and taking that much time to go on a balloon ride, for example, is going to be a huge time suck to me.
Right. And remember that the goal here is how are we getting these dollars into these artists' hands? They're not coming from a magic tree. They're coming from brands. And, you know, I mean, I can tell you Bass Nectar may not have time to go on a hot air balloon ride, but he did place a song into a Fast and Furious movie, right? And part of that placement, because he got paid a heck of a lot of money, included him doing some experiences with the cast there and some of the cars. So, you know, my point is every artist has some passion, just like a fan. And what we try to do to empower our artists is say, hey, especially if you're a larger artist that has the reach, we'll invite you to participate in not only the digital revenue program, but into placement programs with brands. And that's where we specialize in really placing brand products and services right into the middle of the happiest experience of the most loyal fan's life with their favorite artists. And, you know, a lot of artists will tell us, listen, maybe it's not Fast and Furious. Maybe it's, you know, I'm just making something up. This past weekend, we had Razer that was giving away webcams to artists so that they had better quality live stream, right? Like, it just depends on, as you said, and you know, what that artist's ethos is, right?
Yeah, and I think it's important for an artist to stay on brand, too. Like, it wouldn't make sense for an artist to go completely off of their own brand to do a reward or something like that, because it wouldn't make sense. It's not like it wouldn't fit them. That's a good point too. Like you said, you know, not every artist is going to want to do that, but it's also the importance of staying on brand with these types of rewards. So can you talk a little bit about the rewards and types of experiences and why they're so important in a pandemic? I mean, we're in such a crazy time, unprecedented time in our lifetimes, and we probably may never see this again. Hopefully not. But in a time where there's so many people struggling and they're losing their jobs and, you know, maybe family members are getting sick, they're always looking for something to cheer them up. And a lot of times they'll turn to music and artists and to cheer them up. Can you talk about why these types of experiences, whether it be a FaceTime call or whatever type of reward it is important in these types of things, to whether it be for the artists to build a stronger fan base and really connect with them, and just from the fan side as well?
Yeah, I mean, I could tell you a little bit about this weekend, and I think it'll touch all those points, right? So
great.
This past weekend, we partnered with the Room Service Festival, and we were really, really excited about working with the Cut and Sew and the Nations guys, who did an excellent job putting it on. But, you know, our whole partnership was an effort to generously give back to the community, especially those who, as you've mentioned, are struggling the most. So, you know, as an app designed to support artists and reward fans for listening to music, we debuted our artist digital revenue program here during, you know, for those that aren't aware, a 3-day digital music festival showcasing hundreds of artists across 2 streaming channels, Trap Nation and Chill Nation. And the app, Unity, enhanced this whole experience while Uniters listened and shared music with friends on group chats that we call crews that they met during and building up to the festival. So as they did that, they earned karma points, which they got to exchange all through, you know, for rewards all throughout the festival and before it and even now. I mean, we still have kids that have been redeeming rewards every hour, you know, and we're 6 days post-mortem, right? But the best part here was we created a model where whenever Uniters redeem points for a specific artist or an artist hit a milestone within their crew, we paid the artists out 50 to 100x compared to other digital revenue platforms, or sorry, digital streaming platforms. So, you know, that got dollars right in the hands of artists. On top of that, every time we'd put up a reward, we would see conversion on the artist inventory, their online inventory, go up like crazy. Every time that we would see a reward redeem, we would donate in the chats on YouTube, where, we would ignite thousands of live streamers. We at one point had about 100,000 people watching live. The event generated about 33 million impressions with over 1 million unique viewers. And that helped contribute toward the aggregate amount of $135K that was raised. And on top of that, we paid all the artists their face value for their merch that we gave to their fans for free. So you had all these fans that got a lot of merchandise, and given, we had a very short turnaround time with room service, because these guys they're monsters. They're putting up a festival every 3 to 4 weeks. But, but basically, and what did we do? We raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. Our specific uniters raised tens of thousands of dollars. We had over 5,000 kids on the app generate 500,000 karma for their favorite artists in a matter of less than 48 hours. I mean, that's 50,000 song streams in less than 48 hours. We average for the average peak user 30 individual song streams of an artist where they messaged in the app at least 1.2 times a minute. I mean, that, these aren't passive listeners. I can tell you that much, right? I mean, these guys are on it like crazy. Our crew chat was just exploding. At one point, I don't even want to get into, we had to literally increase our server capacity by about 10x during the festival because of the engagement we were getting. But, that aside, going back to the fans, right? It's like, we didn't just give these people rewards. We didn't just give these fans rewards. We didn't just give them a platform to talk to each other. We had kids sharing, moments of them with their dogs. We had a hashtag that went viral that was share your setup, and we had like hundreds of photos of kids sharing their room setup while watching room service. These kids were these fans, right? And I'm a fan. I mean, I was in it the whole time. They were just excited to be together. And wow, for some of them that were crazy, because most of them aren't the crazy super fans. You're right. Right. And even if they are, if they've got the money, they're going to go buy the merch. But for the 10, 20% of the kids that got on that really wanted it, I mean, dude, they went out and got hundreds of rewards. And I think, the money aside, yes, our guys raised a lot of money and they were very engaged, but for the most part, where did it all go? It went to Feeding America, which was a great partner, a nonprofit partner, and Sweet Relief. It went to dollars that went to artists and merchandise that went to fans and a hell of a lot of happy people, and I think if we can replicate that and do more things like that at scale, I think that's what really music is all about. It's about bringing people together and folks having a good time, And
that's the beauty of music, and that's one of the beauties of electronic music is, you go to these festivals at Coachella, Ultra, EDC, and these people are dressed in the craziest outfits, but nobody gives a damn. Everybody's just there to have a good time and just live freely, kind of put aside their worries for the weekend or the week and just enjoy the music with their friends and meeting new people. And I think now in that time, the weather's starting to get nice and all these different festivals around the globe are starting to get canceled and people are getting kind of bummed out. So they're resorting to these online festivals. This is kind of like the new norm. This is how they're going to connect. And I'm excited to see, like, once these people are connected with all these people and they're meeting all these friends online, once the festivals start up again, they're going to start meeting each other in real life, and that's going to start building a community, and that's going to be the beautiful thing of all these people meeting each other and building this network of around music. And I think that is so powerful, is how music can connect people like that. And it's just amazing that, we live in a time and generation where technology has allowed us to do that.
Yes, no, I couldn't agree more. And I mean, on the point of people connecting outside of just the festival, or in this case, even the digital live stream, right? And we had dozens of literally super fans hop off the platform and create Discord channels to create a term which went viral as well called hashtag karma farming, right? Where these guys were like, they're putting all their best friends, their top 100 kids. I mean, we had a crew for Res that was like 100 kids where they literally created a Discord channel and they were allocating who was going to win their awards based off which fans on the Discord channel were streaming music on the app the most, right? We had Snapchat groups, and we still have them right now, where it's not just karma farming, but they're talking about, oh my God, these are the festivals we wish we could go to. This community, like, I can't wait to see you guys. Hopefully this time next year at Electric Forest, because, you know, a lot of these kids were super bummed that the 10th anniversary got canceled, had to get moved this year, you know. So so it's like, I mean, we've worked with Madison House and been up there now 4 years in a row. I mean, we incubated this out of the best music cultures in the world. We started this platform with Dirty Bird fans who will die to go to camp out no matter what. We started it with New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation and you know, the boys down on Oak Street and Maple Leaf Bar. We started it with all the craziest fan groups, which, as you mentioned, in EDM especially, you know, I mean, whether you're a bass fan, you like techno, or you like house music, at the end of the day, these are people that are fanatics. And when music does come back, I mean, I can tell you, if the engagement in the app is this crazy right now, I'm just so excited and happy for when it does, you know?
Yeah, I'm excited to see how these different apps and technology will continue to foster these connections over the next, you know, couple months or even a year until these live events come back. And then once they do come back, it's going to be so cool to see the different relationships that have been formed, you know, over the last year in quarantine. So when are you seeing a different, whether it's in Unity or just outside of Unity, are you seeing these different kind of rewards or whatever, or fan engagements in different genres? Like, how are they differing from electronic music to maybe rock music to maybe country music to pop music, and even across maybe some of the subgenres of electronic music?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, one of the cool features we have is artists can join crews as well and chat with their fans, and other platforms that are allowing that to happen, like Superphone, where, you know, for example, Ash, she's got one of those phone numbers where you can just text it and you get these updates, right? And it's a lot of people love that. A lot of artists don't want to have a phone number where millions of fans could potentially text you and you got to sort through everything and get back to them, right? You know, right? So, I mean, it's like, you know, once again, it's each artist has their cake, but so it's very, very hard to generalize. Like, it's not even fair to say EDM because, you know, Big Room House is not going to be doing probably the same things as you mentioned, someone like Pendulum or Richie Houghton or Claude Von Stroke, right? So it's you know, definitely it's hard to generalize, but if I must put out some generalizations, the trends that we've seen are in especially hip hop and Latin and EDM. These guys love their video games, man. I mean, you know, and it's biased right now. We're in quarantine, but like even before quarantine, some of the most popular awards are always, and not just on our app, right? On all of these platforms, or get a chance to play a video game with these artists. If you look at Nightmare, those guys are always on Super Smash. Like you look at, you know, there's artists that are always like I feel like a lot of Latin artists and a lot of hip hop artists love their NBA 2K. Like, you know, there are some cult followings around games, but let's not forget, you know, everybody loves their Call of Duty. Everybody loves their Gears of War. And it's really interesting to see the convergence of these cultures. I actually think that, you know, whether you're Unity and you're allowing artists to chat with their top fans and crews, or your Superphone or your whatever platform you are, it's the companies that are allowing that dialogue to prosper at scale, to where I, as a curator of sound or a curator of the culture that I love, whether it's music or fashion or whatever it is, am being put on a pedestal in front of everybody else that loves the same thing I love because I just proved that I loved it more than you. And there's something about that gamification aspect in all these platforms that I'm seeing as a trend where if you've got a little bit of that in you, you know, that I'm seeing that's this tidal wave of platforms that are starting to rise, right? So, you know, I'm excited to see, especially with, you know, VR and doing virtual reality meet and greets and things like that. It's that emotion, it's that feeling, man. I mean, at the end of the day, what are we selling? Yeah, we're giving that feeling to how can we make sure that the art of the creators that is being created is given a fair way to being distributed out in the world to where everyone can touch it and sense it to the best of their capabilities. And if you're rewarding people because they've proven that they care about that culture more than anybody else with any type of experience that's enhancing that, whether you're Unity or you're Oculus or whatever you are, I think that's the future of just where everything's headed.
And it's funny that you mention video games because electronic music, hip hop, trap music, it blends, it goes so well with video games. Electronic music and video games go hand in hand because electronic music has a very edgy sound. Video games are incredibly modern. It's just very technology focused. And it's just such an interesting convergence there with video games. I mean, you look at Monster Cat, they have their own kind of video game album that they put out. You've got Red Light Management that just released their Hit Command. They have a Hit Command division that focuses on video game partnerships. Like it's a huge industry and video games are huge. I mean, we all love our own video games. And it's funny that you also mentioned gamification because you look at some of the apps that we use on a daily basis, and some of them are gamified. For example, there's an app that I use called Swarm, and I believe it's owned by Foursquare. And what you do is they give you coins based on where you check in at. So if you check in at, like, say, a baseball stadium, they're going to give you X amount of coins because it's your first check-in. They may potentially give you a stamp because it's your first time checking in at a baseball stadium, and they have all these different stamps for different locations like donut shops, retail stores, cafes, football stadiums, you name it. And they have a stamp for it, and then you can get coins, and then they have like people that check in the most there, then you get crowned as mayor, and it's like this whole gamified system. And it makes no sense because you can't change the coins out for anything. It doesn't mean anything. It's just this competition, and they gamify it to check in. And it's interesting.
No, it's genius. And I mean, we did it with GPS systems. I mean, everyone's heard of Waze. Why were they acquired by Google? All they did was gamify going places to where if you're rewarded, you reported the cop was down on the corner. Oh, I got my 10 points and I got a hat, and it didn't mean anything. Well, take that to the next level, and now you're applying gamification to where it's allowing me to access relationship. It's giving me access to the talent I love. It's giving me access to merchandise rewards. It's giving me access to, anything. I think it's almost like a fundamental to any digital business now. If you don't have it down somewhere in your UX, you're probably a very functional business. I know of apps that are going viral that do your taxes for you. Yes, maybe you don't have to gamify that, right? But outside of apps that do your taxes for you, but I mean, like, even Uber has their loyalty rewards program now. It's just like, it's ubiquitous,
Mm-hmm. And there are even like point of sale systems, like, I don't know if it's Clover or Square but they have different systems on the back end where you can set up like different rewards and gamify people's purchases. Like for every 5 5 purchases, you get a free cup of coffee, or you get a free ice cream, or whatever the product is that they're selling. And just like gamifying that, like it gets people like, oh, if I go there 3 more times this week, next week I can get a free coffee to start the week, or I can get a free ice cream, when I go home, or whatever it is. And that just encourages people to buy more and engage more. And in a world where people lose interest so quickly in things, and if they're not engaged in a matter of seconds, they move on. So gamification is something that I think it can happen on any level, regardless of if you're an independent artist with 50 fans to upwards of 15 to 20,000 fans.
Well, that's what we've seen. I mean, you just hit it. You hit the nail on the head. I mean, look, we've been doing this we started 5 years ago. It took us 2 years to get out a beta, and we just got out of beta at Dirty Bird last year, right? So, I mean, when you think about it, it was a Dirty Bird campout last year. So, I mean, you think about it, during that entire time, I mean, you look at the artists we just activated this past weekend. We're doing Ash, who's got tens of thousands of fans, and then you got Boogie with a Hoodie with like 5.5 million fans, right? I mean, so it's that what we've seen is, and this is about leveling the playing field, man. I mean, it's not about having it, but what we're learning is it is not about having 1 million, 10 million fans. It's of your fans, how many of them really listen to your music and listen to your voice, and prove that they are your fan through conversion, whether that's engagement digitally or conversion through literally paying for the coffee or the ticket or whatever it is. And, what we're seeing, especially as we're working with these multinational brands like P&G, and these are big brands. P&G is the largest global advertiser in the world, right? These guys want to know not who the general populace is, but who are the super fans of everything, not just music, art, fashion, sports. Why? Because when they, inform their media strategies, they want to target audiences that are highly retentive and engaged. Why? Well, because if they target those people, their products are probably going to sell more. They're going to have a higher conversion rate, right? So it's platforms that give them that look while not forgetting the guy that they got the look from. That's the artist, right? And that's where it's like, I'm a huge fan of platforms like Twitch and SoundCloud that are from day one. And I mean, SoundCloud, we all have our love and hate stories with, but for the most part, they're open source, they're giving back, they're about data transparency. They're not hiding the analytics from you. They're giving them to you, and they're not just saying, here you go. They're constantly on the search of new partnerships that allow fans to donate. And even Spotify, I love what they just did with, their new feature they just released this past week, actually, which allows you to tip artists, right? Yes. It's those type of innovations in technology that will democratize the value of data for all cultural creators. And if you're on the other side of the equation in trying to do that, and, those who must not be named, right? If you're on the other side of the equation and you're not leveraging your technological prowess and your assets and your hundreds of billions, because the guys that have the money don't have $1 billion. Don't sell them short at that. They have hundreds of billions. Most of them have actually trillions, right? If they're not leveraging all of that to try to give back to this creative community, then they're essentially saying, we are leeches. We're going to extrapolate all the value that you create, which is your data, and we'll monetize it without you, and you can pay us for that engagement. And, I think we're headed somewhere where creators are smart, and they're going to figure out pretty soon who's really taking care of them and has their backs, and who doesn't. Because I think if you're just going based off streaming, you're basically having to tour 120 dates, or you're not making any money for most artists.
And I just, I mean, we've been talking about the gamification and the importance of engagement as well. And I just want to put that into other artists who may be listening and managers, publicists, whomever, to just think about this. How can you gamify? How can you turn rewards? How can you turn in, reward the people who are most engaged with the artist or their content? How can you reward them? How can you get it? How can you get it so people engage more? These types of things work. Think of the apps and the products that you're using now. Think of the ones that actually have gamified things. Think of like if you're using Waze, are you using Waze more than you're using Google Maps? Why? They're the same damn platform. They're owned by the same damn company. Why are you using Waze more than Google Maps? Think about it. Think about these things. Think of the apps. Why are you checking in on Swarm? Does it mean anything? No, not really. Why are you using it? It's because it's giving you rewards. It's giving you coins. It's giving you stamps. I'm the mayor of Target now. Why does it matter if I'm the mayor of Target? It doesn't matter. They're gamifying these things. And just kind of look at the products and gain some inspiration from these things because they do work. They work because these things exist, and that means they're working. And whether that's gamifying something so you can get more information on your artist, or it's gamifying just so you can get more engagement and then, really convert these people into buying more merch, buying more ticket sales, tipping you on your live streams, streaming your music more, whatever that may be, these types of things work. And I think it's worth sitting down and having like a brain dump session with your team to really think of ideas on how you can brainstorm and come up with gamifying your merch, your streams, whatever it is.
Right. And as we've touched on, it's about doing it in your own special way, because you can imagine a lot of people have actually asked me that question. Well, what's the magic formula? And really the answer is
There isn't.
There isn't. For the Grateful Dead, it's a different formula. And for Bassheads, it's a different formula. And for people that like, Blake Shelton, it's a different formula. And it's really about knowing. And this is where the storytelling aspect of what, this is why I love music, right? The storytelling aspect of what these cultural creators and artists are preaching comes right back to them. Because depending on what they're preaching is most likely what these people like, meaning that's probably the type of gamification incentivization system that, the psychology behind what they're going to like. If all you're talking about all day is how nice your butt is, well, they're going to want to play a game that makes your butt nicer, right? Right. But if what you're talking about all day is your music and video games, they want to play video games with you. And I think you see the parallels, right? It's these people at the end of the day are emulating the people they idolize. So giving them access to those moments, or even if not those moments, but things that facilitate and what's hopefully not a facade, right? Things that facilitate that lifestyle are things that these people crave. Go lo and behold, right? So,
I mean, a lot of people can you imagine how you would make somebody's weekend if they could play video games with you, just join you in on a Call of Duty match or two for a half hour, 35 minutes, 40 minutes?
Yeah, no, we've done it. Trust me, we've done it, and the reactions are insane. I mean, and it's, a lot of people always talk about the fan side and all, how happy the fans is. And I've been in the driver's seat here for a while, and everybody always goes to how happy the fan is. A lot of people on my team and the management point out actually how happy and fulfilled the artist is. Because sometimes we forget and we think of artists as talent, and we forget these people. These are just people. And we say that a lot, but do you know how humanizing it is for an artist to meet a fan who genuinely just cares about their music, and they proved it through how long they've listened to it, and they're doing whatever it is, whether it's playing video games or whatever? It is literally the happiest moment of that person's life. And if you're proving and you're validating that that person is an actual fan, they didn't just pay the money. I've had Claude Von Stroke come up to me and say, I love your app because I'm not just doing meet and greets with the people who are paying for them. I'm doing with the people who are my true fans, right? Not that there aren't true fans that don't pay, right? But for that person, if you're consistently delivering an experience that fulfills the artist, they're walking away in tears sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. They're walking away saying, oh my God, I had no idea I touched this person's life this much to where those 10 minutes we played Super Smash Brothers was that fulfilling to them. And to give that moment, and I want to touch on this because it's important, for an A-list artist, whatever, right? I love them. Nobody feels bad for them because they make a lot of money, okay? But for the average artist, for most of the artists that we've cultivated, not that we don't love our A-list artists, but to give that moment to those lower tier artists where maybe it's been very hard for them to identify in the past. Who are the people that really care about their music? And that experience maybe is the difference between them saying, you know what, I'm going into the studio and I'm recording something because that was so impactful, which I've had hundreds of artists tell me, right? And them not doing it. So it goes right back. It actually feeds the creator within, right? And it's what feeds their creative soul to a degree to where it keeps them happy. And I can't tell you, that is huge in a oversaturated streaming environment where true musicians oftentimes feel let down because they feel like there's no way their music's going to get out there, you know? So if there's platforms that empower them by taking their super fans, and I mean, I can tell you right now, 1,000 Res fans can generate 35,000 streams in a few hours on Unity because, well, they just did. So multiply that out times every single day, adding 1,000, times thousands of fans. If she's got 10,000, she's got 30,000 fans out of her, however many that are insane. And what, they're going to generate a third to a 500,000 streams a day without her doing anything but putting a jacket up.
It's so cool to see how these things work and how these artists are getting in and leveraging these technologies like Unity and other platforms, Twitch, and they're taking and they're making the most of what they have available to them, and they're creating VIP groups, and then these artists are coming in and they're able to play video games, because who knows? Like, I just watched a music video of Kygo, and a B-roll shot of him was playing PlayStation 4, and he was having a great time. But so it looks like these artists are just, automatically they just play video games anyways, to step away from the music, give their ears a break for whatever time, and can just hopping on for 30 minutes with a fan. You're doing it anyways. Why not hop on with the fan and play video games? It's just kind of like building these types of things into your regimen and making somebody's life. And then ultimately, like you said, the artist will be fulfilled and completely satiated and walking away potentially in tears.
And then it happens, man. I mean, you get it. And once again, I don't want to say that Unity is the only answer, right? There's a lot, Twitch, and there's a lot of other guys out there doing this in their form, right? I'm a huge fan of Patreon. Let's talk about platforms where fans pay to get what they want, right? Yes. Patreon. I mean, dude, incredible. Incredible. Talk about taking crowdfunding and making it a recurring revenue residual stream for independent musicians. It works great for some artists. It doesn't work for other artists. Our goals, I think, as technologists, isn't to create a one size fits all solution, right? Our job and our duty, and I'm come from being Indian background, so our dharma is what we call it, right? Our dharma as technologists that want to empower culture, hopefully empower culture and not extrapolate from them, is hey, let's give these guys tools that maybe for one guy he uses my tool, maybe for another guy he uses somebody else's tool. But if we're working towards the same common goal, which is let's get artists paid what they should be getting paid. Let's give fans an experience that they're going to die for. And moments and items and whatever it is, virtual reality experiences that make me feel closer, because in an intangible world that's so digital now, it's those little things that can change people's lives. And I think the companies that instill this into them now, those are the companies of the future generation that will prosper. And I think if you forget about these people, it's cultural erosion, and that would be really sad.
Yeah, I think that's really good. It's cultural erosion, like you said. It's keeping these experiences going and making these fans' lives and days and is so important for that connection. And it's like I said, it's just I'm so excited to see where it goes and all these different platforms like Patreon, like you mentioned. I love Patreon as well. I think what they've done is amazing. And I've seen some of the success stories. Like they have so many cool integrations. Like one of them is people can sign up and they start paying, and it automatically adds them into like a Discord server where these people can interact. And they're having these communities, and they're jumping on phone calls, and the content creators are saying, "Hey, I'm going to be listening to some music. I'm going to be listening to my favorite album because it came out 30 years ago today. I'm going to be listening to my favorite album. Who wants to jump on and listen? And we'll chat while we listen to music." Those types of things are happening, and I think that is so cool and so important, and to have access to your favorite artists and creators in such a world and time is so cool. I just it just kind of boggles my mind because this didn't exist 10, 15 years ago. Like somebody to be able to connect with somebody like Britney Spears or the Backstreet Boys or NSYNC, forget about it. You got to go to their concert and spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on a VIP experience. And who knows if that'll even happen. So it's just so cool, and I think that's a kind of a cool place because we could go on for all night about this. So I think that's a kind of a cool place to wrap up, is keeping these experiences going and really building a solid community of your super fans. So how can listeners keep up with you and all of the amazing work that you're doing to keep fans and artists connected?
Well, you can follow me on Instagram. I know that's where everyone's at these days, and it's pretty simple, just Ketan Rahangdale, just my first and last name. But outside of that, for Unity, we're at the end of the day not trying to just be something you follow on Instagram, but hopefully we'll be giving you a reward or experience that you love. And the best way for you to support that is just getting on Unity and listening to music of your favorite artist, because you're going to do it anyways. So, that gives us enough information to know that, hey, there's people here that care, and most of the time when we get to the point where there's enough people that care, we get our wish and we're able to give those people something that is truly special. So, I want to just thank you so much, Lennon. This was awesome. And
This was great.
Yeah, and I think that, anything you need in the future, we're not just here to hopefully give podcast sessions, right? We're here to help educate, because I think that that's what's missing here. Everybody's so caught up in, oh my God, my agent just lowered my fee for my artist to under my competitor artist, and I didn't get 100 gigs booked. I only got 80 this year. And I think we're out here preaching, wait a minute, there's platforms like Unity and other things, especially now that people are finding them because live is just gone, right? But when it does come back, these things aren't going away, and they can be strong sources of supplemental income. And who knows, maybe if we get our wish, maybe we end up creating a new model which actually sustains rather than extrapolates value and gives it right back into the hands of those we care about the most, while hopefully creating happy people, right? and then happy fans. So thanks again, and I hope you enjoy your evening. It's a Friday night.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to chat with me on this evening, and we got a great conversation out of this. So thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yep, thanks, Lennon. You have a great time. And hey, a big shout out to you and Franz for putting this together, and just thank you for everything. And I'm sure you'll have some editing staff that'll be working on this, but at the end of the day, when life gives you lemons, right, you gotta turn it into lemonade.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And that's I think I need to start building that into the podcast a little more, is when life hands you lemons, you make lemonade.
Yes, that's right. Lemonade. All right, brother, you take it easy. Have a great weekend.